Wow, great to be here. So I want to ask you one question. What were you doing 10 years ago? If you can think back 10 years ago, it was almost 2003. If you look back at 10 years ago, were you fulfilling the passion, the innate goodness, the talents that you have innately to you, and deploying them into the world of business? Could you say that about today? Are you doing that today? You are. Well, if you're not, guess what we're going to do today? We're going to connect you in a way that is even more powerful, that is changing business, that is building leaders, and it's all on the premise of the voices that are not heard. 10 years ago, I actually thought I was. On paper, it looked very much like I was. I was building a very large business, in the very early stages of it, actually in California. And ironically enough, it was a business for the high-end male. So I was going into high-end male homes, guys' homes, and I was interviewing them. And what struck me most about what happened to me in this transformation was this was the first of what happened. And that was, I made friends with their wives on the front end, at the front door, and invited them into the conversation. They weren't on my 3-ring binder, but I thought, you know what, I'd like to hear what you have to say. And when I sat down to ask the guys in these beautiful homes in California to tell me about entertainment and what needed to change for them, do you know who started jumping across the coffee table? It was the women. And what was so catapulting to me in that moment is that I had these innate feelings of having had success in my career up to that point, and yet feeling like I would always shave off my idea to fit the culture in a way that it would accept the idea, because guess what? That's how you get traction. You shave your ideas down. And when I was in that moment and heard their ideas, and not only heard what they had to say that was wrong with the current environment, but more importantly, when I said to them, so what would you do if you were me? And what I expected them to say was, I'll get back to you, or do you have an email? What I got was passion, conviction, and the solutions. In every single house I went to, and the passion and conviction came from the look in their eyes. Now, I believe that the eyes actually, if you look in someone's eyes, and not just a glance of how you're doing and you're going on with your business, but if you stop and take a look, take a real look, I think the eyes are the gateway that tell you everything about a human being. It tells you most importantly about 2 things: their passion, and it tells you about their values and how they treat people. And if you simplify it all down in my world, that actually is the essence of what it takes to build something powerful, to make change happen and make transformation happen. Because if you're on the same page with me about treating people with respect and integrity and giving everyone a voice, we can figure everything else out. As long as you have the passion and the determination to go up against the resistance that you're going to face and be unrelenting. Be creative, but be unrelenting. That's the look in the eyes of the women that I saw. The second thing that happened to me in my California trip, when I had the resume of what one would say was, you've made it, Julie. You're going to the Grammys, you're in the club, you're getting all of these perks in corporate America. And yet, I knew in my inner spirit that there was something unfulfilled. In fact, I knew that I felt in my real life, I was going through the motions to fit in. Not to be who I am authentically, but to fit in. Because that's what was getting me traction, and that's what historically had worked. Well, the second thing that happened to me in this environment was 23-year-old women would engage me as I would go in these retail environments. And they would engage me, employees, when I'd walk in with a look in their eyes of just excitement, which I didn't really understand because I'm there to do my job and we're going to do some stuff, until I had one 23-year-old who had the courage and the perseverance to sit down with me and tell me, do you understand why we're doing this, Julie? It was that look in her eyes with tears. She never left my glance. That she said, you don't understand. You've been successful. We never see anyone who looks like you walk through these doors, ever. And we keep coming back even though we face the same brick wall time after time again. We don't get our voice heard in a meeting, and Bill takes the idea we just said that no one heard and gets it executed and then gets promoted, and we can't even get to the happy hour. And you figured it out, Julie. And you give us the hope that if we just keep coming back one day, that's going to be us walking through that door. And that was the day my role of a senior executive changed. Because no longer was I being evaluated in my own scoreboard of how I was progressing in my career as the next promotion, as the next big bunch of perks that I was going to get. Because what she told me with that is I was in a position that I no longer had the ability to choose what I was going to do. I actually had to make a big step off this treadmill going 8 miles an hour that I could barely keep up on, and I had responsibility to make change happen. The third thing was actually the fire in my belly that has never left. And it's not something any of us ever want to talk about. In fact, it's the dirty little secret on women. Women are not always kind to other women. In fact, when you see a woman who has actually, in your mind, made it, or she's got the most beautiful dress, or she's got the best career, or she's got this, or she just published a book, there's a piece in your spirit, and I know it, and I'm saying I'm guilty, that you automatically critique her. She's too ambitious. Really? Really? And how this came to my awareness is I actually had a male in the company tell me that I'd been extremely successful and they were really excited about my success. But he couldn't understand why the other executive females in the company had such disparaging things to say about me. And you know what's interesting? I had never met them. I had never had coffee. I'd never sat down with him for lunch. I was traveling nonstop, eating bad pizzas in bad hotels in California. And yet, they were doing what they could do to, behind the scenes, disparage my brand. And why? Why? Why were they doing that? We could debate it, but I can tell you, fast forward, they later came to me 3, 4, 5 years later and said, we were jealous because we didn't understand how you could get there, and it was so hard for us. That was the day I had the dream about. I went back to my hotel room in California. Sounds like a movie, I know. And I couldn't sleep because I had these female consumers jumping across the table with the same fire and passion in their eyes as what I saw the 23-year-olds have. And the things they were saying were different than what was being talked about in any of the strategy meetings I was in. But the things they were saying was exactly what I knew intrinsically as a woman, was exactly what the business had to do. But the existing paradigm could not hear it. It was like if you had the cure for cancer and you tried to describe it, they couldn't identify with it and they couldn't hear it, and therefore, guess what? You get no capital, and if you get no capital, you get no head count. And if you get no head count, it becomes an affinity group of women's networking that is below the line and has no impact on the business. And if it has no impact on the business, it's not going to change the culture. It's not going to change the outcome. In this dream, if you look at these eyes, I dreamed of being a 5-year-old growing up in this small place where there were wolves. And I was right in that dream, and I woke up out of the dream, and I saw the eyes of wolf. And I saw the eyes of wolf because I remembered as a kid hearing the howl, the one howl. And it gives you shivers up the back because it's different than what you've heard before. And the only thing that's more moving than that shakes the ground, is when you hear all the other wolves coming from all different directions and they're supporting the voice of that wolf. But they're doing it with their own uniqueness, their innateness, and their talent. And they're passionately mobilizing around the voice. And I woke up and I said to myself, if not you, who is going to do this? I had no choice. Because if I didn't, I would sell my soul. And I would ultimately view myself as being incompetent because the voices of growth are actually not the traditional hierarchy of business. the voices of growth are you. And I woke up out of that dream, and I related back to a gift that I received, which I brought today. And this is the gift. This is a gift that you all have. This is my great-grandmother's purse. In 1800, as she carried this down the street, do you know what was in this purse? I'll tell you what wasn't in this purse. There were no car keys or even reins to any kind of transportation because she couldn't drive. There wasn't any money because she couldn't earn any money. She had the choice of being a housewife or a school teacher, and school teachers were not paid. And when I think about carrying this purse today, and I have my credit cards, and I have my car keys, and I have everything else that's in this, I actually have the transportation to make change happen for everyone. And I have the inspiration while she's long, long gone that I know she would do it if she were me. In spite of all the fear, in spite of all the things that people are going to say, women and men. And so what this person now says that it didn't say 10 years ago, if you were to do any kind of search on the internet, is this says 60% of the wealth is being held by this purse. 60% of the wealth. So if you're the Merrill Lynch or you're the Fidelity, wouldn't you think you'd restructure your entire company and get as many voices of women customers to reinvent your strategy? It's just something I think about. 80% of all purchases are made by the people that carry this purse. 3 times the GDP of India and China combined. Do you know how many businesses restructured their entire company and put headcount and did billions of dollars of investment just to go after China? And yet what we're talking about here is a recent study came out, and it said out of $18 trillion being spent in the world, do you know who's controlling 12 trillion of that? The people who carry this purse. That would be us. Now that's enough. I mean, I could end right now, and I think that we're all ready to go, right? But here's the second piece of this. Women and men's brains are wired completely differently. And the scientific studies that are out there validate that women's physiologically, our brain chemistry and our brain as it stands are completely different from men. Why in the world would a company think that they can have a focus group of all guys in a strategy meeting and brainstorm what women might want? So we've got the money is sitting with us. The insight to go after that money is sitting with us. And yet, why aren't companies transforming in their entire structure when it's sitting right in front of them? In fact, the women that they need are right in front of them in their own company. Because the hierarchy of companies was built for 2 things. It was built for speed of decision making, and it was built for organization and discipline. If you think of it, it was built by men because they were going after the same group of customers that were who? Them. They didn't need to build the hierarchy for innovation. They didn't need to build the hierarchy for bringing in the voices not heard because there were no voices that weren't heard. So I'm not critiquing, they're my friends. But guys, we got to change things dramatically. So what Wolf does, and what we've done for 10 years that's been audited and evaluated by the most prestigious organizations in the world for the outcomes that we've gotten, we rewire these companies and we overlay the innovation architecture on top of the existing hierarchy. And we strategically intersect it and connect it to those key executives in decision-making positions. And these groups, these packs, are women from the outside of the organization, from the inside of the organization, from the bottom of the organization, and from the top. And what are we doing? We're building the architecture to reinvent companies, to build growth. Now, we could brainstorm, and I would love you to think about this today. Of all the companies that are failing today, terrible things being written about them, I guarantee you one thing. It's because the senior executive team has isolated itself and cast off the entire perspective of everything we just talked about in this session. There are 5 steps that every single one of you can actually do. And it's not that hard. especially with all the information available on the web around business case, around validating today, instead of them being anecdotes that I had to work with 10 years ago. They are facts and they're well documented. Build the business case and build a business case that you can take to the board of directors to get traction, to get head count, to get financial outcomes. Engage key leadership. Men are key to this. It's not that they don't want to do it, it's that they don't understand what they're missing. Until they're in a room with 100 wolves that know more about their business than they do. And have the confidence and the passion, because why? Wolves support each other. We don't critique, we don't gossip, and we don't manipulate each other. We're leaders. Mobilize the culture. Build the infrastructure and the roadmap. We now have wolves in 53 countries reinventing companies in every industry, including most recently, healthcare. Healthcare. And launch. Evaluate and launch. So as I wrap up, I want to challenge you. You're actually no different than me. Many of you have more talents than I could ever imagine. But I'm challenging you that in this 10-year period, like I did 10 years ago, I want you to ask yourself, if not me, who's going to make this happen in my organization? Who's going to make this happen in my community? I want these chairs to be empty because you've said, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to find everyone I can find to support me to make this happen because I believe in the voices. We can do this. We can make it happen, and we can eliminate the need for this discussion and for this entire TED Women event from ever happening again, only to change it to be celebrating the businesses that we're running because we have the insights to run them. I want you to leave, and tomorrow morning I want you to wake up, and every day after that, I want you to push open the door, and I want you to push 2 women who are confused and don't know if they've got the talent because of what culture has done to them. And I want you to say, you're going to do it, and I'm going to make sure that you're successful. And I'm going to support you in the meeting, and I'm going to elevate your voice, and you're going to go after that promotion. And you're going to take on that new business venture because you know what? I'm going to be right behind you, and if you even fall, I'm pushing you right back in there. Because you can do it. And what it's going to prove to you, and I know you're going to see it throughout the day, is that when you look in the eyes of a woman, what you're going to realize is that the eyes of the woman and the eyes of the wolf are the same. Thank you.